Okay, here we go. Here's my footage of the time I got a job in Maine, and the company flew me out from Pittsburgh. It was really exciting at the time, especially after being unemployed for a while. But I've been putting this off for a long time. I'm just wondering why I make myself do these things if I don't enjoy them. Maybe with the misplaced faith that the end result will be satisfying. Who knows? I had a layover in Philadelphia on the way out, and I documented most of my food the whole time. Having my flights paid for and having my food paid for were equally exciting. Seeing this boat out in the middle of nowhere was surreal. It wasn't nowhere, it was just off the coast of Long Island, but the view was all ocean. It just seemed like it went off forever. Anyway, it was nearly 50 degrees when I left Pittsburgh at 4 a.m., but when we got to Maine, it was snowing. Crazy how different locations on the globe have different climates. My job was in Jonesboro, but Maine is so rural, there was literally nowhere to rent within an hour drive. So we ended up in the Bar Harbor area. This is the kind of thing that got Bob Ross into painting, I'm sure. We don't have seagulls in Pittsburgh, another novelty of Maine. Eating on the company dime meant not having to order from the value menu, so I went wild. Except I didn't, because I was paranoid that my expenses would be closely monitored and scrutinized. Wreath Factory, and of course, the Chainsaw Eagle. I can't leave that out. Jonesboro claims to be the blueberry capital of the world, but if you Google blueberry capital of the world, it's Hamilton, New Jersey. There are a lot of blueberries, but the best ones I had while in Maine were actually shipped from Mexico. I had over an hour commute, but the scenery definitely kept it fresh. Maine is really amazingly beautiful as long as you don't care about having to drive for 45 minutes to get groceries. I wanted to film this place before heading back home, but the sun had already started setting. I ended up driving past this place every day and never really checking it out, but sometimes spectacles like this are better unexplored. Never meet your heroes or something like that. In hindsight, buffalo wings was a really bad idea the night before hopping back on a plane for several hours.
The cabin lights will be dimmed.
They had to de-ice the plane, naturally, because Maine.
Thank you for your attention. Enjoy your flight.
So I couldn't film takeoff because I was convinced that showing takeoff 8 times wouldn't get old. The orange spots are where the sun had risen. It was really hilly terrain compared to Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh has hills, but it's not, I don't know, not like winding road hills. Maybe it is. I don't know. I didn't really explore Pittsburgh very well. More food paid for by the company who is taking a huge risk on employing me despite my lack of qualifications or experience.
That's Kennedy Center.
I can't animate text very precisely. I'm really not a fan of this software, but I might get to use something else here for the next project. Thanks, Chris! This plane had a surprising amount of legroom. My boss intentionally booked the emergency exit seats, but even so, I've never had more than I needed. I was even thinking like, Chris would even be comfortable here. Maybe, I don't know. I have the model of the plane somewhere if you're interested. Hit me up and I will dig around for it. The way we took off from DC and got up to the clouds so quickly made it feel like we were just in a giant room. Then I went home and geared up for the next set of flights. Look at these massive planes. I don't even know where this is. Maybe Philadelphia again? Taking off is always terrifying to me. When it suddenly quits being parallel to the ground and you sink into your seat and the potential to come crashing back down to the ground increases. I think filming it gave me something else to focus on, though. But I'm never gonna get used to it. There was tons of fog in Maine, like all the time. Maybe it had to do with being right next to the ocean or how much it rained, but it was rad. It felt like a closed circle a lot of times. Like, I don't know how to say that it feels like a closed circle other than saying that it feels like a closed circle. It just felt like walls. Felt like walls all around you, and you would like go, I mean, yeah, it's fog. It felt like you were surrounded by walls, but as you approached them, they kept moving further back. It just felt like there was no outside world. It felt like being in an old PS1 game where the world loaded as you were walking through it. Also, the cracked roads in the rain reminded me of Kent. You probably don't remember Kent, but it was rainy all the time, and our driveway was asphalt. I have way too much footage. This is my commute every day, and I rarely saw other cars on the road, except this one red truck with Jersey plates that would try and drive me off the road once a week. I don't know if they were elderly or just texting, but they would go over the line at the worst times, like around blind corners. They actually did drive me off the road one morning, the one morning my boss was coming to visit. Oh, and most of this stretch doesn't have cell service, so I was stranded on the side of the road with no signal. But luckily a game warden with a big old truck came and towed me out. Really, a medium-sized truck could have done it too. My car is really small. Driving in Maine made me feel like I was in a car commercial. I feel like this is probably where they film car commercials. Here's something valuable to share. A sink design that I thought was dumb. Water doesn't get in the corner. Why do you have a sink like this? It's just going to get dusty. Here's another thing. The toilet with 2 flushing options, one for using less water and one for more, except it really seems like they got it backwards because one water droplet pushes both buttons and the 2 water droplets only pushes itself. Dumb, 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 dumb. Let me criticize everything. And another thing I wanted to criticize. I felt like this Baptist church's message was uncharacteristically agnostic, but you know what? I know better now. It isn't a sin to utilize the testimony of others to strengthen your own. You just shouldn't prop yourself up on others' testimonies forever. That's what my talk is about next Sunday. I mean, that's not what it's about, but that's a point I make. Then I got kicked out of that motel because they didn't like me criticizing their bathroom. So I wandered around Acadia National Park until I could get into a real special motel. Porcupine Islands, from that time that I sent the picture of the Porcupine Islands to Facebook or group chat or something. I don't remember. Then I tried to go to Cadillac Mountain, but it was closed. But you know what they forgot to close? The Bubbles! The Bubbles is a foggy forest hike. This is the bubble, maybe. The idea here was that I would splurge, but I would order enough to eat leftovers on Sunday so I wouldn't have to buy food on Sunday. It was still a surprisingly large portion of food, but it's okay because I left my leftovers at the restaurant right after I let myself believe I was dependable. Time to check into the vacancy, the newly renovated colonial indoor heated pool. Join our pool club. With features like an accident waiting to happen and other unspeakable, unfilmable monstrosities. Get me out of that place. I think someone said this was Atlantic City, and according to Google Maps, sure, probably it is. I don't remember what city this was. Oh man, this would be embarrassing if it's Pittsburgh and I just don't know what it looks like. So we moved to Maine, and I didn't try to film any of the 16 hours of driving because I already knew that I had more than I wanted to weed through. Of course, that meant I didn't capture the proudest dad joke I ever made when I said, "Hey, Kellen, we're all out of Minecraft, but do you want to play some Pinecraft?" And he even laughed at that and wasn't like, "Dad, could you not?" like he usually does. The first thing we did when we got into Maine was go to a concert. Just kidding. The closest venue for events was 250 miles away in Boston. Kellen learned about static electricity, he learned to swing on his own, he learned about the ocean, he learned about lighthouses, he learned about virtual reality, he learned how to eat a donut without his hands, kind of. He learned that if he would just get his dang shoes on himself and quit whining about how much he's gonna hate it, he could actually enjoy things like hiking. But of course, he immediately forgets, so... That's Maine! Any questions? Please don't ask any questions. I'm done talking about Maine forever.